What does it mean when we're being tested in relation to our manifestation?
The universe is testing you to get us back into that perfect creation that we were created as. They really do lead you to your manifestations, I promise.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacy Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. If you are feeling in a time where you are being tested or triggered, or you're just coming up against a challenging situation and you're not sure how you can navigate from your magnetic self, how you can navigate from your authentic self, what is the decision that is going to get you closer towards your manifestation? Or maybe your manifestation is starting to present and you're not sure, is this a test or is this my manifestation? Today, we are going to give you a brand new protocol on how to navigate tests with ease. Tests are a common part of life. They're going to come up. We're going to face them. It's part of being human. But it's how we respond to them. It's the opportunity that they allow us to become a new, more aligned version of self. So today, Lacy and I are going to help you navigate your tests and give you a really cool protocol on what to do when you're facing a test. Enjoy.
And now, a word from our partners.
Speaking of manifestations, one major manifestation that has come through for me recently is Bon Charge's infrared PEMF mat. Their PEMF mat, which stands for Pulse Electromagnetic Field, is a magnetic energy mat that sends energy waves to work with your body's natural magnetic field and improve your overall well-being. Now, I originally heard of PEMF mats back in the day. I used the first one at Lacy's Forest Retreat House, and I kind of didn't really think it was going to do anything at first. And when I laid on this mat, I'm telling you, my whole body just relaxed. My nervous system relaxed, and I fully was able to calm down. Fast forward a few years later, one of our absolute favorite companies, Bon Charge, has launched their own PEMF mat, and it is fully loaded with all the best biohacking techniques you can imagine. So not only do they have multiple frequency settings, one for delta waves to improve deep sleep, one for grounding and earthing that is in the frequency of Schumann's resonance, which is the Earth's magnetic field frequency, one for alpha waves to increase calm creativity, one for beta waves for logical thinking, conscious thought, or meditation, and one that cycles through all four to really align all different parts of your body. But that's not all. They also have red, near infrared, and far infrared light wave frequencies. You've heard me talk about this before, but red light therapy can be so impactful for muscle soreness, tension, pain in the body, detoxification, and so many more things. It is also packed with tourmaline gemstones, germanium gemstones, and amethyst crystals, which all help to balance your mood, keep you calm, activate spiritual awareness, open intuition, and attract positive ions from your body to keep you in that balanced state. And really exciting news from Bon Charge that all of their products, if you have an HSA or an FSA account, they're all eligible, giving you tax-free savings up to 40% on any product you buy from Bon Charge. This is huge. And it's also really cool that they're getting recognized for how much these biohacking products are impacting your health in such a meaningful way. So if you are interested in trying Bon Charge's new infrared PEMF mat, you can use the code MAGNETIC, that's all caps, MAGNETIC for 15% off. Again, that's magnetic, MAGNETIC for 15% off. Or you can go to bondcharge.com/pages/magnetic and check out some of the other incredible biohacking low EMF products that BondCharge has to offer.
All right, on to the episode.
Lacy, welcome back from maternity leave. It is so good to have you back and connecting with the community. I also feel like you never left in some ways because you were like still with us and connected and sharing, but we're so excited to have you back too.
Yeah, it's so nice to be back. It was funny, like prepping for this morning. I was like, oh my God, where's my mic? Like I couldn't find things. And I was kind of like flustered and, remembering how this process works. So I'm just so grateful to be back. I'm so grateful you especially and the rest of the team held everything down so beautifully. And yeah, just really pulled off that summer and the challenge just in such an inspiring way, leading the community.
Oh, thank you. Speaking of support, we're talking about tests today. So many of you are going through tests. I think that's kind of life. I feel like we say that a lot. There are periods that feel like they're more test-ridden. There's more growth edge where people are being pushed against. I feel like it's going to get even more intense as we edge up to this new paradigm concept as well. But tests are just a part of life. They're part of our evolution. They aren't this scary thing. They aren't this dramatic, oh no, I'm getting tested. It's a really good thing. And how do we get into a place of reframing that, but also not, for lack of a better word, gaslighting ourselves that experience wasn't hard or challenging? How do we actually validate it? So that's what we're going to dive into today, a little protocol of how to pass your tests with ease, how to see the nuance in them, and just how to make this process smoother for you so you're not feeling so overwhelmed if you get hit with a bunch of tests, because it does mean your manifestation is close. So Lacy, if you wanted just to give a quick overview for anyone who's brand new listening, tests and manifestation. What does it mean when we're being tested in relation to our manifestation?
Absolutely. So I have to say that tests, if you could trademark something, that's probably what TBM would have trademarked, because
and expanders.
And expanders. Yes, exactly. Magic Dark, another one. Mm-hmm. These are things that when I was doing all of the superstitious versions of manifestation that we all practice I was doing them from like 17 to 25, 26, all the think positives, all the pretend to be what you want to be, etc. I always talk about that. It wasn't until like 25, 26 that I really started to notice, whoa, big manifestations are coming, but never when I do all of those things, never when I'm pretending, never when I'm thinking positive. What the fuck am I doing that's making that happen? And something I started to notice over and over again is like the universe tests me. That concept just has never, ever been in manifestation. So if you ever hear of it in manifestation, it's because we've introduced it to people who do this kind of work. And so the theory of it is the universe is testing you. Let's just get back to fundamentals, right? I believe the only purpose of the universe is to get you back into your whole worthy, authentic self that you were born as. But because, and you'll hear me say this every single time probably we ever talk about manifestation, because we all experience pain, shame, and programming from day one. It's the human experience. We're here to evolve in consciousness. So yeah, we experience that. Those are the things that put what we call, and to be magnetic, an onion layer up, a mask up is what you'll hear in shadow. Those are the things that have us, in order to stay safe and be loved with our caretakers and our direct resources, we mold and shape in the ways that we will be able to survive and be loved by them. Therefore, we start to create low self-worth and we start to lose our authenticity. And therefore, the universe is trying so hard to get us back into that perfect creation that we were created as we are incarnating into this body. It's all it wants to do is support us to get back into that magic. And the thing is it all lives inside of us. It's never left us. It's just something that we have to kind of peel those onion layers off of to exist from again. And so to summarize that, the universe's only purpose with tests is when you start to call something in consciously or unconsciously that you're manifesting, it's going to test to see if your self-worth is where it was at the point of which you were settling in a scenario before. So let's say you're calling in a relationship. Maybe you've been somebody who's been in relationships that haven't fully served you or served your authentic self, or you've been in a lot of experiences where you're being taken advantage of or not seen, or all of that's what, we have many episodes on that. Therefore, once you're done with it and you start to call in a new relationship, the universe is going to send you two types of tests. Either you're going to receive tests that we call trigger tests or opportunities. The universe will always test you in this process. So let's dig in and really uncover tests and how to navigate them.
Yes. Okay. So quick checklist for you guys if you are wondering how to spot them. It's something that, does it impede on a boundary that you set for yourself? Have you recently said, I'm no longer going to do this, and then all of a sudden a situation presents that's asking you to do that? That's a test. Do you feel shame or embarrassment around it? Is it asking you to settle or feel small? Is it pressing upon an insecurity, core wound, or shadow you need to work through? I think it's really easy to spot a test because it's literally bringing us back to what we were settling on before. If we're trying to work into a new way forward, navigate a new path, it's like, okay, cool, I'm going to give you the old thing. Are you going to settle for that? Are you going to get reactive like you did in the past? And the opportunity tests are really a lot of times they're physical manifestations. The opportunity of a specific partner, they're the opportunity of a specific job or a specific home or a specific career path, etc. Is this the physical item representation of what I'm manifesting, or is it missing some of the key core needs? And that's really when we know it's a test. And the trigger tests are essentially ones that are pushing on our emotional state, something that gets us really reactive or looping back to old patterns, narratives about self that are low self-worth. If someone says something and your emotional reaction to that is, oh no, they think I'm not intelligent, and your limiting belief is that you're not intelligent, that's a test to say, are you going to jump down that rabbit hole again, or are you going to basically heal this wounding that it's poking at? And one of the things I like to think of, especially with the trigger test and the emotional test, is how quickly our inner child parts, and if you look at it through the lens of internal family systems, we have all of these different parts inside of us, how quickly those parts immediately take the driver's seat to try to protect us when we feel like we're being wrong, dismissed, rejected, whatever it is. And does that protector part of us go into self-attack, or does it go into defense? I think those are two things that are so common. Is you'll know you're being triggered or tested because you feel really defensive all of a sudden, or you get hypercritical on yourself. And there are other reactions you can have, but those are some of the most common ones too.
Yeah, I think anytime you feel reactive to yourself or externally, I guess too, trigger is something we should cover a little bit. I know we have in podcasts, but people hear that it's a buzzword and they're like, what does that mean? It's truly any time that your body starts to feel activated, meaning you start to feel angry, sad, jealous, not good about yourself, emotional. What would you say, Jessica? How to explain when you're feeling triggered?
It knocks you off your center. If you think about some of the recent episodes, we've talked about the magnetic self, being grounded, connected, compassionate, open, free, all of these things, authentic. But when you are triggered, you are basically not in any of those states. You are in all of the other, I would say they're the survival states, the stress states, the fight or flight, the freeze or fawn. It's basically an activation to let you know, hey, pay attention here, something's going on. And it's interesting because if you think back to the role of why we get into those stress states, even from like evolutionarily survival perspective, we got in those states to run away from a predator, or we got in those states to fight against a predator, or whatever it is for fight flight dynamic. But in modern day, most of us are not running from a lion or tiger, but our nervous system feels like it is. And I think a spiritual nod from the universe is like, okay, we're going to activate you so you see that there is something here we need to take a peek at.
Yes, which most often than not is always rooted back to something we experienced in childhood. It's really pressing against that edge of something that was wounded in childhood, which is why so much of this process is founded on reprogramming your subconscious with neural pathways. So yeah, totally. I think that's a really important thing to cover because people, I know I've seen that before. Can you describe what trigger means? What does activated mean? That kind of stuff. So I think it's good that we cover that.
I love that there's language for this because I think so many times in life we're like, oh, everything's going wrong. Like, what is this? What is this? And to say like, oh, I am being triggered. I am feeling activated in my body. And I think until you are on the path of consciousness and self-evolution, that reactiveness just gets displaced, whether it's someone, you get mad at someone else, you try to project it onto someone else. It's uncomfortable to feel those big emotions in your body. It could turn internally to a self-critic, but unless you make yourself aware of your triggers, you're responding to them on autopilot, fighting tooth and nail through your triggers instead of letting them flow with you to feel the feelings, learn the lesson. If you're trying to bat them down or numb them or fight through them, they're just going to keep getting louder in a lot of ways. What is the lesson that I can potentially learn through this test or trigger?
And I think that brings us into like the next speaking point is, you know, it's one thing to go through self-help and self-evolution in a grueling matter, right? It feels like an uphill battle. Why am I doing this? Like, da-da-da. But it's another thing when you are being tempted by something you really want in life or many things you want in life. And so the beautiful silver lining to going through feeling those feelings and going through tests in general, the beauty and the gift in it means that the universe is dancing with you. It's heard what you want, and it's going to go through the process to give it to you. The only reason why you would be tested in life and triggered in life is, of course, to get back to your whole worthy self. But I think the universe is so smart. We're in a material plane, in a physical body, that it's going to tempt you with those manifestations you want. So you are being tested and triggered only because a manifestation is orbiting around you and it wants to connect with you. And when you can have that reframe, when you're going through these really insane Mercury retrogrades that we've been going through and those shadow phases and the fucking Jupiters and all the things that have been happening and that we're moving into this eclipse season, it's been pretty heavy for a lot of people, really heavy energy. And it's a lot for us all to hold and to go through. And it's very easy for us to be like, why is everything in my life falling apart? Why is this all happening to me? You know why it's happening? It's because the universe really loves you and it hears what you want and it's trying so hard to connect you with that thing or those things. Therefore, it's testing your old habits, your old self-worth in order for you to integrate them and connect you with your manifestation. So it's actually really awesome. I'm somebody who actually loves tests. I love magic darks. Even the ones that just knock me off still, like hit into my scarcity, hit into my greatest wounds after we talk about this wonderful process that Jessica's put together of how to navigate that knocking you off your feet sensation. When you get to the regulated part of it, I'm like, oh, fuck, this is awesome. What I want is so close. Okay, here we go again, universe. Let's dance.
Okay, so you are tested, you are triggered, but what do you do in the moment? So we have a little protocol for you guys. Number one, pause. Do not respond. Do not be reactive. Do not set the boundary now. Don't start ruminating on all of the things. Take an intentional pause, whether that's a deep breath, a moment of stillness. even if it's a few seconds between the stimulus of the trigger or test and however you would respond, because that gap is where the opportunity for change lies. So if you can just say, whew, okay, that was a test or trigger. Let me sit down for a second.
I think this is going to be the hardest part for people when a test hits, because when you're knocked off of your feet, essentially, energetically, we all spin into our old habits. So again, just want to nail it on the head. Everybody goes through this. You're not alone, and you're not being targeted by the universe or by whatever. Just know when you go into that fight or flight or that fawn or freeze, this is so natural, and every single person goes through this when they're being tested. And this intentional pause that Jessica's talking about, not only in that moment, those 3 seconds you're talking about, not only is that where the change lies, it's also where an incredible amount of magnetism lives too. Because if you in the past have always just instantly been reactive, you've sent the text, you've sent the email, you've spun out into lack and scarcity, just that moment. And it's going to take a while for a habit shift. Just know it's not going to happen right away. It may the first couple of times, but it's so foreign to us traditionally that even that intentional pause might take some time and getting used to, and opportunities for that, for you to make this shift. But I want to just stress that the magnetism lies in there, because anytime you react in a high self-worth way that you never did in the past, you create situational magnetism. And we can talk about that. So situational magnetism is when you haven't completely unblocked something, you haven't completely expanded something, but you are no longer behaving in a way that's low self-worth that you used to in the past. This is nuanced, right? So in manifestation, you're dealing with energetics, playing with magic. So in the past, if you have those reactive tendencies, which I would argue most of us do when a core wound of ours is being hit upon, if you take that moment to pause and behave differently than you have, you're like, no, I'm sorry. I'm not spinning out all the way on this. Maybe I am going to spin out all of the way on this, but I'm not going to react in the ways that I used to in the past, because sometimes we don't have control. Just by having that pause when you naturally in the past have reacted in low self-wounding behavior, just that is going to create the situational magnetism where little manifestations start to pop up. Because what creates magnetism in manifestation is any time that we are no longer settling and we're stepping into high self-worth behavior, where big magnetism happens for us in manifestation is when we are now reprogramming our subconscious and thinking from a new self-worth perspective that we no longer used to think from in the past due to wounding. So this is an opportunity, just that pause, to create a little bit of magnetism for things to start popping up for you.
In the moment, it feels like it emotionally overtakes you. And I just went through this with this home manifestation test situation that I was navigating. And my immediate reaction was like, I have to call friends and ask what to do. That was my first impulse. And I was like, whoa, okay, I need to really sit with this. And I a little bit failed the test because I did wind up calling every friend under the sun. And they were just I wasn't getting the concrete decision, the intuitive hit of how I should navigate, until I finally took the time to sit down, regulate, look at my journal, see what my pattern was. And then it hit me like a lightning bolt. Jess, this is what you have to do. And I could not have gotten that answer from any friend. So the pause is so important.
This is where it's so hard to not work with people, It's so hard because to what just energetically, because that was a great example, to what Jessica just shared, she still created magnetism because instead of, God, I know this so well in myself and clients, in the past, instead of calling every friend and then spinning out more, you had a behavior shift. You went, okay, I didn't get what I was looking for from the friends. I did have a moment of pause, but I still called them and chatted with them, but I didn't get what I was looking for. So now I'm going to try something different. I just want to say, because something that comes up for people with tests, and this is also another really important takeaway from this episode, so really take this away, you can't fail them. So just because Jessica went around and called all of her friends, simply having that pause and after it, doing something differently created magnetism for her. So I just really want you to know, like, in the first few times after hearing this episode and even pulling it up in the app and having the resources of notes in front of you, you're gonna still react in old behavior ways once in a while, especially when it's a huge test, one that just really gets you, you know what I mean, and really triggers old wounding. You're not failing if you do that, even by going, okay, I'm pulling it together now, and I'm going to follow the next 3 steps that Jessica's about to talk through. That creates magnetism because it's a habit change. It's a difference. You're not reacting in low self-worth behavior again. So I just wanted to touch on that because I know perfectionists out there are going to be like, oh, damn. And this, just so you guys know, this happens with me all the time in parenting. Every time something's happening that's triggering, I see Teddy do something, and it brings up the way that my mom would have responded to me or my dad would have responded to me. That's all conscious parenting is you're just fucking trying to do the opposite of what your parents did, essentially. But it's innate, right? You get reactive. And I still do this. I try to pause, but it's something's happening in the moment, right? Just like gonna knock something down or break it or whatever. We don't have that much time, but I'm literally doing exactly what you guys are gonna do in this moment. I'm like, okay, what's the thing I'm supposed to say or do? Or like, you know, it's because you're having a habit shift, and it takes time to shift a habit. So I'll stop harping on this.
I think that's so important that you did, though, because I would almost say, especially when it's a big, like, Achilles heel thing that you're shifting, a big way of being, operating your automatic responses to certain things that may have been the way that you don't want to operate going forward, you're probably not going to pass that test 100 times, but then eventually you will start passing it bit by bit, and it'll get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger until that becomes the default. So just because you didn't pass it that one time, you will have plenty of other opportunities. You didn't miss the boat. You didn't mess anything up. You're human. The fact that you even are aware of any of this, you're 10 steps ahead of most of the people in the world. You're doing all the right things. Give yourself some compassion, and you will always get another opportunity to pass another test. They come along nonstop. So you will have plenty of chances to do it again. And maybe that moment you actually didn't need to pass it because you needed to know what it felt like to not pass it and be like, oh God, that didn't feel good. Why did that not feel good? Oh, right, because I chose that old way of being. Okay, let me try again. Getting good at any art form or any craft or any sport, you know, you're going to get knocked down a bunch of times before you can get back up and like actually be excellent at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
At TBM, we talk a lot about the mind-body connection. And one thing I can't get out of my head is something that Dr. Tara said a while back, and how one way to start to rebuild that connection or enhance or deepen that connection between the mind and body is while you're in the shower, intentionally giving all of your body parts love. Now, this made me think about how my shower could be this task that I have to get done to this incredible ritual of self-love. And one of the products I utilize to help me do this is Osea's Body Collection. And Osea just launched their most anticipated product to date, their Undaria Algae Body Wash. When I tell you the smell of this is just so heavenly, it's citrusy, it almost has like a grapefruit, lemon, orange scent to it. And as with all of Osea's other products, it's completely natural, plant-based ingredients that help support your skin. So it doesn't disrupt your skin microbiome or disrupt your pH. It actually makes your skin feel really nourished after. The worst thing ever after showering is when you use a body wash or a body bar and your skin feels kind of dry and cakey. This does not have that effect at all. It leaves it feeling supple and soft and really moisturized. All of their skincare is clean, vegan, cruelty-free, and climate neutral certified. So it is not only supporting your body, but also the planet. So if you want to treat your body to feeling like a day at the spa, I highly recommend their new Undaria Algae Body Wash. And you can top it off with a little Undaria Algae Body Oil or their body butter afterwards to just really lock in all of the moisture. They even have travel sizes, so if you are on the go, it is the perfect little 1.5 ounce to stack in your bag and have that experience on the go. Up-level your shower with Osea's clean vegan body care. Get 10% off your first purchase with code MAGNETIC10, all caps MAGNETIC 10 for 10% off your first purchase. MAGNETIC10, MAGNETIC. Okay, so step 2 is reset. Now, in reset, one of the very important parts and steps that I forget a lot, but is so invaluable, is to validate your emotions. So oftentimes we think if we say like, oh, it makes sense that you're upset by that, it thinks that we're going to get more of it or we're indulging into some negative narrative. But in fact, the inner child wounded part of us that has popped up, that's taken the driver's seat, that feels all reactive, needs to know that you hear what just transpired. It needs to know that it makes sense that they had a big reaction. So taking a second where you can really validate, we have the validation DI, which is so good for this, or even just taking a second by yourself and be like, wow, okay, it makes sense that you're having a really big reaction to this. Like, I get it. That would really hurt. If you're seeing the world through this way, or if you're feeling this way, or you think that person did that on purpose, or that really hurt your feelings or whatever, that makes a lot of sense. That process has to be done first before we can tap into what the new self, new belief is going to go down. We have the reset DI that does a good job of this. You can use the fight or flight DI, freeze or fawn. Breath work is great. Movement can help that. And the second piece with this reset is getting back into a regulated state with your nervous system. Having your body tell your brain that you're actually safe. So whether that is through breath work or any of the DIs I mentioned, movement, getting in nature, again, in those quick ones, especially with kids, you're not going to be able to have this whole protocol, but perhaps afterwards or when you have that spare time, how can you reset and say like, okay, actually I am safe in my body. I know when I've had like driving experiences where like things were scary on the road. When I get out of the car, I'm like, whoa, I need to tell my body I'm safe now. And that like, that was a scary experience and I'm okay. So how can we communicate from our body to our mind that we are safe now by doing things that make our body feel safe?
Yeah, it's also no surprise, too, that in any form of conscious parenting, that's the very first step you take when you, with anything, with literally anything. Obviously, Rye really focuses on this, but I'm reading a lot of positive discipline books, right? Any moment that you're going to redirect your child in any way, the number one step is empathizing, naming, oh, I see that you're really having a good time with that right now. Validating their experience and their emotions before you can go into the redirect. And it's no surprise that this would be the next step after the moment you're triggered. Because when you were a child, I'm going to take a gamble here that there's probably a 99% chance that was never done with you. Your emotions and experiences weren't validated once there was a shift or a redirect that was needing to happen. So it's no surprise here that in the manifestation work, when you're being tested and you have to take that pause because you're going to be reactive, all those emotions are coming up. They're coming up because you were never validated. So it's literally inner child healing in that moment, like what Jessica's talking about with this step of telling yourself you're safe and also giving yourself permission that what you're feeling, that's a reality, that's happening, that hurts, that's scary, that's any of those scarcity emotions that could be coming up. So it's a two-part thing that's really important there that's happening.
And if you go into, I think it's our Feel Your Feelings DI, you can even pop open or even Google it too. We have linked a feelings wheel. Sometimes just identifying, what am I actually feeling? Am I feeling anger? Am I feeling fear? What is the emotional state that I'm processing through in this moment in reaction to this triggering situation or this test? that process is really huge. And then once you have all of your faculties back online, once you are now, okay, my body feels safe, I'm feeling a bit more grounded, I'm a little, I still don't feel fully settled with this test or trigger, but I feel a little bit more like myself. My magnetic self has taken the driver's seat again. Then you start to reframe. Then you start to instill this new belief that actually this test is a gift to allow you to connect with what you want in your life. This is an opportunity for you to show up in a new way. And it might be scary to have to step through that fear and show up in this new way, but it's presenting because it wants you to take this next step. It wants you to take that leap. And this will deepen your trust muscle with this practice. This will get you from moving from a victim mindset to an empowered mindset. This is where you take your power back in this reframe of like, okay, how can I see the gift in this test or trigger? And obviously there are life situations where it's going to be harder to see that silver lining, but how can we pull even the smallest bit out of it and say, okay, well, this is helping to teach me to actually feel my really big emotions like grief or pain and not escape and run away from them again. What is the smallest thing that you can see there that is a silver lining to that situation happening?
I totally agree. So go ahead and hit us again, Jessica, before we move on. Give us the quick step-by-step process. The moment a test comes through and you're triggered.
It hits. Step 1, you're going to pause. Step 2, reset, which you're going to validate whatever emotions you're feeling. Use DI if you want to use that. And then you're going to get your body to feel safe again. The safe DI is great for that. Any of our calming section, really the calming section, Deep Imaginings is going to be your protocol if you want to use that. Or get in nature, do a heart hold, put your hand on your heart, hand on your stomach, deep breaths. Just let your nervous system know I'm safe. And then 3, you're going to reframe. What is the gift? What is the silver lining? What is the growth opportunity here?
And then I would say that 4 is when you go in and figure out the test. Figuring out why you're being tested and what it's connected to. What manifestation is that test connected to? Because it's not always connected to the obvious. If you're being tested in finances, could be totally connected to a love that you're calling in. If you're being tested, with anything, with relationships, with partnerships that are popping through, friendships, you're being triggered and it's really coming up. It could totally be a car you're manifesting. Like, it's not always related, but the one takeaway is the universe is using this manifestation, may it be, material or emotional that you're calling in, like a growth that you're calling in. Just know that it's going to directly relate to a block in your subconscious that's blocking it. And when I say a block, that's some sort of wounding where you're looping in your subconscious of low self-worth. And even though it's that car you're calling in, or like Jessica, the home space that she's been calling in, Jessica wasn't only dealing with home space tests, right? No. Over this last year, let's argue, she was dealing with a lot. She was dealing with emotional tests coming up, work tests coming up. I mean, it was coming from everywhere, I imagine, because that was a really big one for you. So just note, finding out, I would say step 4 is finding out what that test is related to is going to help you get that big reframe of, oh, this really is a gift. Fuck, this is hard, but this is going to be so worth it in the long run.
So important. Also understanding, and we'll get into some examples at the end of this episode too, but I think sometimes people are like, is the test to do this or is the test to do this? It can get a little convoluted, especially when it's not so direct. Is the test that I shouldn't settle because it's not everything on my list? Or is the test that I need to open myself up to love again? It can look really nuanced depending upon what you're going through. So here are just a couple of questions you can start to ask yourself as you're doing that inventory to understand what your response to this test could be. So getting clear on the limiting belief, the fear, the inner child wounding, the shadow, the old pattern that is coming up in relation to this test. Is this about lack? Is this about boundaries and codependency? Is this about scarcity? Is this about self-worth and not feeling good enough? What is that pattern that it's related to? And how have you typically responded to those things in the past? This is actually a good one. So a few months ago, I saw this one sort of message that someone didn't like my voice online.
Oh, that was like when we first launched the podcast. Boy, did that spin me out. Vocal fry got me so bad, man. I'm like, what am I going to do? Change my trauma and my voice? I can't do that. So
I know. And I was like, I know this work. I've been doing this work for years, and still it gets you in the gut. So
Yeah.
I read the comment and I know, okay, I should take a pause. But instead I was like, okay, maybe the test is that I should take vocal lessons and I should get better at speaking and blah, 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 blah. And then I took my pause afterwards instead of spinning down the rabbit hole. And I was like, wait a second. My wounding, whenever someone would criticize or didn't like something about me, my pattern in the past was to fix myself to be something that they liked. So if I go and take vocal lessons because of this comment, not because I authentically were so excited to take vocal lessons, but just because they didn't like my voice, I would be reinforcing that I need to play small to become what other people want me to be versus my authentic self. And the test then was, I'm not going to take vocal lessons unless one day it really feels fun and exciting to me. I am just going to continue to be myself. I'm not going to self-criticize. I'm not going to tear myself down internally about this. I'm going to regulate. I'm going to tune and sit with my inner child. And I'm going to try to let this go and just accept that I might not have the voice for everybody, and that's okay. And that was how I could pass the test. But you can see how in that moment, I'm like, oh, I can pass it by taking vocal lessons. And actually, that would have been reinforcing the limiting belief again. So how do you typically respond? And is that from a place of low self-worth, validation, looking to others for approval? Or is that from a place of, I love and accept myself, and this is what I want to do authentically because it brings me joy? What path is the response to the test guiding you on? Because like you always say, Lacy, the opposite is the medicine. Well, if I used to like fix myself to be seen, then the opposite is I'm not fixing myself in this situation.
Yeah, I agree. And this isn't totally pertaining to tests, but, you know, if someone's sitting there being like, well, I really don't like Jessica's voice or Lacy's voice or whatever. The really interesting thing about that, it coincides with everything we teach. There's a shadow aspect there to yourself that's showing you, oh, when I was young, somewhere in my history, it wasn't okay to have a voice like Lacy or Jessica's. It has nothing to do with Lacy or Jessica. Really, in fact, has nothing to do with me or my preferences. It's that something about the persona that we represent to you when you were young was bad, shameful, not cool, you wouldn't be loved if you were like this. So it's just another way how this works. I have all sorts of shadow shit still. I literally have a playlist on my Spotify that says kids music that's not annoying, because I have no patience for like little voices and little things, you know, and why don't I? I was never allowed to indulge in that stuff when I was a kid. I was parentified extremely young and had to grow up very fast. Same with, I hate musicals. I absolutely hate musicals. What child hates musicals? I've never met a kid that doesn't like musicals. You know who else hates musicals? My dad. You know who else hates musicals? My mom. Probably wasn't okay to like musicals when I was little. You know, and maybe I'd be a very different musical person. So it goes to show that the universe is always holding that mirror up anywhere we are, whether it's that we're being tested or that we're experiencing something we dislike or judge. The only thing the universe is trying to do is get you back into that whole worthy self that you are already inside. You just aren't allowed to be based on how you had to survive in childhood, adolescence, early adulthood.
I have a question for you, Lacy. So not to add more nuance to this example, but what about in a scenario where, let's say I was getting the ping that I wanted vocal lessons for some reason, right? Like, let's say I was like, I want to do it, but I was putting it off. I wasn't doing it. And then someone made the comment. What would the protocol for that person be would it be to then follow the vocal lessons because it was hitting on this action that they're not taking to better themselves? Okay.
I think what you have, the way you navigated it is exactly right. Because still, yeah, you'd be initiating from low self-worth behavior. So you've been getting the ping to take vocal lessons. Let's give an example of how you would be like actually tested to do that. It would come down to the same energetics of when people are procrastinating. Because usually if you're getting that ping and you really want to, procrastination, as we know, comes down to a level of fear, perfectionism, or whatever, that we're putting it off, or maybe you just really don't have time. Here's the thing about why that ping would have come through anyway. That ping's going to come through because it's one of the next steps that's going to connect you with a greater manifestation you're calling in. So let's say after TBM, you're calling in, who's the big expander? Call your daddy, right? Like,
yes. Parts of it.
Like, let's say if that's the brand you would want someday on your own, and the universe keeps pinging you, take vocal lessons. It's because it's going to be one of the next steps that takes you there. Therefore, it's actually going to test you with old self-worthy stuff, like why you would put that on the back burner in the past. So pings are only truly going to come through when they're going to take you to that next space. And if you're putting them off too, I feel like we're not, this is a real nuanced thing. This is actually really fun. I feel like we're not often tested on the pings. The pings just keep coming through different avenues. So I think that's how I would answer that in real time. But I'd have to think through past experiences because I'm not getting a direct channeling on them. But that would be the way I would answer that, is usually pings just keep coming. I think what happened with you, I know what happened with you was the exact way to navigate that, because you didn't navigate it from old low self-worth beliefs and behavior. You actually made that pivot. So is there any situational magnetism that's come from the way you followed this protocol?
Yeah, actually, I was asked to give a little speak at a speaking event after.
Yes, that's a great example, because you followed the steps we're talking about in here, and you just had that little tiny bit of difference, right? Versus how you used to react. And you changed that. That's a prime example of situational magnetism. Bam, the speaking opportunity came through. I mean, that's how it works.
So good. Tests can be really confusing and unclear in the moment, but I think once you put that protocol in place, that pause, that reset, that reframe, and really then step forward, distilling down what the meaning behind this test is, they are going to be so much easier to navigate. A test is not coming up to punish you. It's not coming up to make you feel small, to make you feel less than, to feel behind in life, or what you want isn't possible. It's helping you to fortify your own self-belief that you have support, that the universe is with you, it is working with you. Because I think so many times the initial thing is like, oh God, this is happening to me, and like, oh, I'm not good enough at this yet. That's what it is. I'm not good enough at this yet. That's why I'm being tested. And that is so not true. It's trying to let you see that you are good enough at it, that you do have the capability to pass it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be coming up. It wants you to get closer to that manifestation.
I completely agree. And this just furthers the conversation that...
Guys, this is the real deal. This is mom and business owner and founder. Like, this is how we do it, guys. This is our expansion here.
This is the new paradigm.
Yes.
Truly,
Yes, it is.
But this furthers the conversation that, gosh, if we can start to recognize what isn't truly us, what is really low self-worth, speaking, looping, reacting, and having compassion for that it's okay. Like, the universe never, ever punishes you. And that's where, at the same thing, you also can't fail a test because they just keep coming back. So even though being tested isn't a gentle process, the universe is always coming from love. That mirror and that work is hard, but the universe is always coming from a place of love. And all of that old superstition of bad is going to attract more bad, negative thoughts are going to attract more, that all just is not true. And the universe is, God is, infinite consciousness is love. And at the end of the day, like when we, who am I to say, because I haven't arrived at this at all, but the more we ascend to that, the more we just start to get into a place of love. So I actually can see how philosophers, or even if you have people like the Hicks, right? She has that channeling. I could see how the message would be get into the love, get into the positive, because that's what we're all truly ascending to. But that's why To Be Magnetic is so effective for people. You manifest so much. Like you go onto our site and you're just reading all of these testimonials. It's because we're like giving you the intricacies, steps, and nuances of being a human being while doing it, and how it actually works to eventually get you to that place. So it's a kind of a tangent, but maybe that helps people that kind of, are on the fence, like I've learned these other models. I'm afraid to look at this wounding or see it as a trigger and feel those emotions. But in fact, they really do lead you to your manifestations. I promise. By now, you're starting to get the feel for TBM. Maybe you've heard about our workshops and you're interested in manifestation, but you just don't have the time or energy to sit down and do self-help work. We totally get it. In fact, that's why we created the Daily Practice, which is our massive library of self-hypnosis tracks that you can do anytime without having to jump into a workshop. We call these tracks our Deep Imaginings, or DIs. DIs are different than normal meditations because we designed them using a combination of self-hypnosis techniques, deep theta waves, EMDR-informed tools, and somatic experiencing. A fully loaded formula that is scientifically proven to help you clear your blocks and triggers on a subconscious level, giving you the power to actually create new neural pathways in your brain. So if your boss pisses you off, use our Trigger DI. If you want to feel magnetic before a party or an important meeting, use the Magnetic Self DI. If you're feeling anxious or down on yourself, or you need help making a decision, we've got a DI for all of these scenarios and more. You can get full access to the Daily Practice inside the Pathway membership, where you'll also get unlimited access to every workshop, tool, and offering from TBM. The tools in the Pathway membership will support you year-round, whether you're in the worst, a rock bottom, or second worst, a rut, or feeling good and you want to keep the magnetism going. In the Pathway, you'll effectively learn how to become your own manifestation coach, all for less than $1 a day. So even if you're not ready to start a workshop, join the Pathway and start rewriting your neural pathways now to create magnetism. Work through your triggers and get closer to your authentic magnetic self in order to manifest. Use our special code MAGNETIC, all caps, MAGNETIC, to receive $20 off your first TBM purchase. Again, that's all caps, magnetic. Now back to the episode.
Okay, let's just do a couple of quick questions to finish us off here. So I feel like I'm being tested in my new relationship that felt like a manifestation come true. My partner is very caring and supportive, but at the same time, quite soft and possesses some feminine qualities that are hard for me to accept. I'm trying to understand whether I'm being tested to not settle for something that doesn't work for me, or tested to not project my dad onto this partner. I always considered my dad to be weak and, quote, not a real man, and actually start to accept the softer sides of people and myself and let go of control and trust the things that will work out or fall off themselves. I love this because it's like, this is someone who's trying to understand, do I just not settle, or am I being asked to evolve and heal?
This is the perfect example. We don't know. This could be the person's partner. We don't know. But something I'm certain of is that this person's a bridge manifestation. The reason why I keep thinking about bridge manifestation, bridge tests, kind of the same thing in a way, is that bridge manifestations come through to help expand a part of you that you weren't expanded into, like you weren't healed enough for, to show a part of you, heal a part of you in this case, that might be limiting you from having your partnership or manifestation come through. And the way that I know that it's a bridge of sorts, because it's not toxic. So the fact that you're recognizing these qualities and then associating them with your dad, you seeing your dad as not a man, et cetera, was all stuff that was programmed into you, right? So maybe your dad wasn't bringing in enough finance, whatever. Maybe your mother, his partner, your other caretaker was saying this, or society was saying it. However, this opportunity has come in order for you to heal and integrate that piece of you, probably for your own feminine as well, I would argue. You know, like if we were in session, we would really be looking at that shadow that's coming up, right, is that he's too feminine. Now, is this your great person? Who knows? But I do know for a fact that this has come forward for you to integrate that part of you and to integrate and be expanded, that your partner can both be a man, whatever that means, like in gender and stuff, but be a man and also be in touch with their feminine, loving sensitivity, because that's really, at the end of the day, all any of us, whatever sex we are looking for. So this would be considered like a bridge manifestation, a bridge expander, potentially a bridge test. We don't know yet. You have to get past this piece of integration and healing to make a calculated choice after. But if you're reacting from a place of, oh, it's not my list, or, oh, this is a test, you're going to just receive this opportunity in a different way. Could be from a friendship next, could be from a boss next. Whatever the universe is going to make sure is in your life that's going to stick around until you heal that piece in you that has that shadow.
That's why it's so important understanding when you are facing that test. If you are looking at is this because I'm settling? Well, what wound is it touching on? Because maybe you're not settling, you're healing the wound. That was definitely what happened with my home manifestation, where it was like over my budget that I had initially set for. And I was like, is this a test? Because I'm supposed to make sure it's in my budget. It's the only thing on my list that it didn't check was the budget. And then after looking at my pattern, all of the tests that came through before, all of the things that I had been tested on, it was like, you need to step out of this box that you put on yourself. You need to look at your authentic code. Home is one of it, not your savings account. I was sourcing safety in something that I thought would bring me safety when I looked at where I was putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak, was that there? Was this in the home? And I had to jump off that cliff and say like, yes, okay, I can do this. And of course, with a budget, with checking all my finances, making sure I'm covered, still in alignment with all of that. But I think that's the Achilles heel you have to look at, is like, is this asking you to evolve versus to settle?
Yeah, agreed. Completely.
So good. Okay, one last quick one. I have been doing a ton of healing work with TBM. In February, I went on a short trip and came back home to my apartment in New York and felt like I wasn't aligned with my place anymore. It was as if I came back and no longer had strong feelings for my boyfriend. So I thought to myself, okay, well, nothing I can do about it now since I just signed my lease renewal in January. Fast forward to July, the universe reveals to me that there's mold in the apartment. Insert dramatic music here. So now I have to move. I got the owner to agree to break the lease, no penalties, big win. Created my manifestation list. Part of the list I want is a new place to feel homey and must have outdoor space and other various non-negotiable items. Really, if you saw my list, you'd laugh because no one has this type of apartment in New York. But I haven't budged and said no to everything that came down that wasn't this place that had everything on the list. And then this is very similar. And then lo and behold, this place pops up. It's everything I want, but it's outside of budget. I decided I can make it work, got approved. The owner decided to back out. 2 weeks later, another beautiful place comes in, checks all the boxes, even better than the first. Next thing I know, another applicant got it. In the meantime, I do have some finances I need to clean up. Now, originally I thought it was the budget that I needed to step through. But now with the finance test, is the universe saying that you need to clean up the finances first before actually spending that? Was it protecting me?
I can't help but like just put on my channeling hat, because the whole time you were talking, I was like, oh, this person's not expanded enough. Like they even said it, this doesn't exist in New York, but I know that I can manifest this, right? So to me, it's not crazy that the universe would send through 2 test expanders at once. And I don't think it's totally the finance thing that has to be cleaned up, although since you're aware of it, yes, that's a piece of it, of course, but I don't think it's the major overarching thing. I think that those places weren't your right places. They were just expanders. There's a lot more that we could talk about in terms of bridge, test expanders, bridge tests that come through, because that's how this work becomes nuanced. So for this person, I wouldn't be discouraged. I'd be like, oh, the universe is working with me. It's sending me these test expanders because my subconscious didn't even know that something like this exists. Now I've seen 2 examples, but I can guarantee you they're not the right places for you. And you wouldn't have probably passed those. And the universe is protecting you in that situation. The right place is definitely orbiting you. And I don't know what exactly the work is that has to happen. It could be the finance thing, but those definitely came through. They weren't the right places for sure. It's so obvious in the ways that they didn't work out, but they were definitely there as your expanders, because I bet even the place you end up manifesting has a feature or an aspect about it that you didn't even think of yet. And that's why you're needing these levels of expansion, so that it becomes so like, oh, these are all over New York. I mean, not all over, but and like they happen, because I bet there's even something there that you haven't thought of that's going to be in this manifestation that comes through. I wonder, Jessica, if you can speak to that based on this manifestation process of a home.
100%. I mean, when our place came through, it was like, yes, everything was on the list, but there was so much more to it that was not on the list that we were like, wow, what the heck? This is amazing. But I would say beyond all of that, it was the sensation of the space. And it sounds like, especially because you were like, I came back and I felt like this isn't grounding me. But she also talked about later in some of this about the recovering from the mold stuff. So it's almost like your home is manifesting you in a weird way. Like it is kind of the place where you can heal, get to the next place of evolution. I kept, when I was manifesting the home, like thinking of just feeling so held in the next space, so nurtured, just energetically, just like a baby being cradled almost, right? And it seems like the universe is trying to connect you with a home that is going to give you that sensation. So I would really pay attention to how you feel in the next few spaces, because I think that will tell you way more than looking through it. Definitely you can clean up your finances if that's like a test that's coming up, but I don't think it's going to be the Achilles heel. You've already been expanded in that sense.
Agreed.
Thank you guys so much. We'll share the protocol, the 4 steps in the show notes, but you guys got this. Tests can be challenging, and just know that it really is the universe helping guide you and holding you, and it is with you and it believes in you. So you got this. Happy eclipse season.
Thank you so much, guys. See you later.
I hope you all enjoyed that episode as much as we did. And if you're starting to get a feel for this to be magnetic manifestation process, but aren't completely sold yet, let me point you to some of our free offerings. You can check out the expanded podcast episode called How to Manifest Anything You Desire, where Lacy, the founder, and I break down exactly what this process is all about. You can check out The Motivation, which is our testimonial library with thousands of testimonials of people who have manifested wild things using this process. Or you can check out our free mini workshop to find out why you're not manifesting and listen to one of our proprietary deep imagining audios, where it's going to help you drop into your theta state and overwrite low self-worth limiting beliefs. Enjoy. We'll see you next week.